The clock showed late afternoon at the airport, and the lobby resembled a human anthill. Passengers hurried past, suitcases swirling, voices mingling in an organized chaos. Amidst boarding announcements and the metallic sounds of trolleys, Flight 227 bound for West Africa prepared to depart. In the first-class lounge, one man stood out not for his luxury, but for his simplicity. He wore a traditional black tunic, clean but discreet shoes. He didn't wear an expensive watch or display a state-of-the-art cell phone. He simply observed. His gaze was calm, firm, like someone who had seen the world and learned not to react to everything he saw. In that space, reserved for executives and millionaires, his presence aroused curious glances. Some stared at him for seconds, others whispered discreetly. But he remained motionless, patient, waiting for the boarding announcement. When the voice echoed through the loudspeakers, "First-class passengers, please proceed to Gate 4. He stood up serenely and walked to the queue. At the aircraft door, a blonde flight attendant with a practiced smile greeted passengers. Her name tag read Clara. She politely greeted each customer who presented an expensive suit or a gold card. When the dark-skinned man arrived, her smile vanished in a second. "Sir, you must be mistaken. This line is only for first class," she said, blocking the passage with her arm. He simply handed over his ticket. Clara examined the paper, frowning. "Seat 2A. "It must be a system error," she murmured. With a look from head to toe, she added in a sharper tone, "This flight is not for people of your color." The silence in the aisle became heavy. Some passengers stared in disbelief. A man in a tie raised his eyebrows. A young woman sighed indignantly. "Excuse me," the traveler replied calmly. "I told you this flight isn't for you," Clara insisted. "Someone probably used your card by mistake. We'll sort this out, okay?" Public humiliation seemed inevitable, but his composure was almost disconcerting. "This is my ticket, and this is my seat," he replied. The tension grew. The flight attendant, a young man with glasses, approached, noticing the atmosphere. "Is everything all right here?" he asked. Clara answered first. "This passenger is trying to board first class with a fake ticket." The young man took the ticket, scanned it, and the beep confirmed its authenticity. "Everything is fine. The seat is valid." Clara's face hardened. "Even so, he doesn't belong here." Cell phones began to discreetly rise. Videos were being recorded. The man looked at her and said, "I didn't come looking for trouble. I just want to occupy the seat I bought." The flight attendant's authority slipped before his calm gaze and the pointed cameras. With no choice, she stepped back and allowed him to board, casting one last venomous look. "We'll see how long you can stay sitting in that seat." The interior of first class was a stark contrast. Soft leather, a light perfume in the air, elegant whispers. The man placed his small bag in the overhead compartment, sat by the window, and opened a notebook. There was no resentment on his face, only silence. Clara, with her automatic smile, served drinks with kindness to everyone, except him. When she reached the seat next to him, she attended to a French lady with delicacy, but when she turned to the passenger in 2A, her voice turned cold. "What would you like to drink?" "Just water, please." "Still or sparkling?" "Still." She carelessly dropped the bottle onto the tray without saying, "Here you go." The man simply adjusted the bottle and took a sip, as if nothing had happened. Across the aisle, a French executive observed everything. His name was François Delicourt, and he noticed that this silent passenger possessed something he didn't see even in the wealthiest men: dignity. With the flight already above the clouds, the tension only grew. Clara pretended not to see him, ignored requests, and withheld pleasantries. The other passengers exchanged uneasy glances. "Why is she treating him like that?" whispered the woman from seat 2B. "Maybe she thinks he shouldn't be here," replied another, embarrassed for him. The young flight attendant tried to intervene. "Clara, that's enough. People are filming." But she, overcome with pride, replied, "Let them film. This seat isn't for him. He doesn't belong here." Turbulence began to shake the plane, and Clara, still sarcastic, leaned forward. "Fasten your seatbelt, sir. We don't want you to fly away." He replied politely, "Thank you for the warning." His calm disarmed her, but she disguised her feelings and walked away. When lunch was served, she carelessly dropped her tray. It was then that Francois raised his voice. "Commissioner, why so much disrespect?" He did nothing. Clara tried to justify herself, but Francois interrupted her. "It's not about him. It's about you." Silence returned, heavy, until the captain's voice announced the descent. Clara approached again, still trying to maintain a false authority. "I hope you choose the right section next time. You're lucky to still be on this flight." He looked at her calmly. "Sometimes the seat we choose isn't for comfort, but for what it represents." The words hung in the air. Clara didn't understand, but something within her wavered. Outside, the lights of Ouagadougou shone beneath the clouds. The plane landed smoothly. The passengers stood up, but everyone wanted to see what would come next. Clara still felt angry. She approached once more and, lowering her voice, whispered cruelly, "You smell like you haven't showered in a month. Do you think this place makes you clean?" He just looked at her, saying nothing. The woman in seat 2B heard the tone and reacted, "Enough! This is abuse!" Clara retorted, "Stay out of this!" But Francois stood up and declared, "You have shamed us all. He is more worthy than everyone here." When the plane door opened, the shock was universal. On the ground, a red carpet awaited, flanked by soldiers. A black car adorned with the country's flags stopped before the stairs. Passengers pressed their faces against the windows. "Who will be the VIP?" someone asked. The young flight attendant, still pale, walked over to Clara. "You need to see this." He showed her a photo on his cell phone, the man in seat 2A, in military uniform, being greeted by crowds. The caption was clear: President Ibrahim Traoré, leader of Burkina Faso. The blood drained from her face. "It can't be," she murmured. He calmly stood up, picked up his bag, and walked to the exit. "Wait," called Clara, now trembling. "Sir, I didn't know." He turned. "Would it have made a difference if I had known?" he asked. She swallowed hard. He concluded, "Respect is not a gift to the powerful. It is a duty to every human being." And he left under the African sun while soldiers saluted. The news exploded on the internet even before the plane was evacuated. Videos of the incident spread around the world. Clara blocking boarding, the president's silence, Francois's intervention. Headlines popped up in every language. African president suffers racism on luxury flight. Outside the airport, employees whispered in fear. In the airline's office, the manager stared coldly at Clara. "Do you realize what you did?" She tried to justify herself. "I didn't know." "It doesn't matter who he is," replied the superior. "You disrespected him as a human being. That's what really matters." She cried, but the verdict came quickly: immediate suspension. Meanwhile, Traoré remained serene. Next to the official car, he told the airport director, "You only care when you know who the person is. That's the problem." And he added, "She didn't just insult me. She insulted millions who looked like me." Later, the president spoke to the press. Dressed in his uniform, he declared before the cameras, "Today I traveled as an ordinary man. I didn't use titles or have escorts. But what I experienced was more than discrimination. It was a reflection of what still exists in the world, the belief that appearance defines value." He paused, looked firmly into the lenses, and added, "No human being needs to be important to deserve respect. It is enough to be human." The audience applauded. Then, surprising everyone, he said, "I forgive her." There were murmurs of astonishment. "Yes, I forgive her, not out of weakness, but because the world has already seen and the lesson has already been given." That night, His phrase echoed across continents. Respect is not a luxury, it is a duty. Days later, Clara wrote a letter. Mr. President, I apologize not because you are important, but because I failed to see your humanity. I was blind, proud. Your words broke me and rebuilt me. She sent it, not knowing if he would read it. At the palace in Burkina Faso, Traoré received the letter and put it in a drawer. She learned her lesson, he murmured, and he decided to transform the episode into something bigger. We will create Project Dignity. We will teach respect in schools, in airports, in every company. May this flight be remembered as the day silence conquered prejudice. Months later, Clara began volunteering in immigrant shelters. She met an African girl who said, "People call me dirty." Clara replied, "They are wrong. You are beautiful, exactly as you are." For the first time, she understood the weight her words once had. Years passed. President Traoré was speaking at a packed university. Millions face prejudice every day, not because they are bad, but because someone thinks they are worth less. I remained silent, not out of cowardice, but because silence is sometimes stronger than 1,000 speeches. The audience gave him a standing ovation. On the screen behind him it read, "If your power makes someone feel small, then you were never great." That phrase crossed borders, was printed in schools, airports, and even on the walls of the airline involved. The world had learned something, and it all began with a flight, a seat, and a man who chose silence as his response to ignorance.